My friends convinced me to go to the club for a birthday party. I didn't want to. I said I was tired, that my wife was on a business trip. They insisted. And you know what's ironic? If I hadn't gone that night, I'd still be living a lie. Because that very night I saw my wife kissing another man. My name is Andrew. I'm 34 years old. My wife's name is Melissa. She's a marketing executive who travels frequently for business. We were together for 6 years, 5 of them married. I trusted her completely. When she'd pack her suitcase and say, "I'm going to Seattle for 3 days," I'd simply kiss her on the cheek and wish her success. Why would you doubt the person you love? Looking back now, I realize how naive that sounds. But that's the thing about trust. It's supposed to be absolute, isn't it? That's what makes it trust. The moment you start questioning every trip, checking every receipt, monitoring every phone call, that's when you know something's already broken. I never wanted to be that kind of husband. I never wanted to be the guy who suffocates his partner with suspicion. Melissa and I met at a mutual friend's wedding. Cliché, I know. She was the bridesmaid who caught the bouquet, and I was the groomsman who made her laugh during the endless photo session. We exchanged numbers, went on our first date to an Italian restaurant downtown, and I remember thinking that night, this woman is different. She was ambitious, driven, confident. She knew what she wanted from life. I admired that. I was working as a software engineer at a mid-sized tech company, comfortable but not passionate about my work. She made me want to be better, to aim higher, to actually care about my career trajectory instead of just coasting. Our courtship was passionate. Weekend getaways to the mountains, long conversations that stretched into the early morning hours, inside jokes that made us laugh until our stomachs hurt. When I proposed to her on a beach in Mexico, under a sunset that looked like it was painted specifically for that moment, she cried and said yes before I could even finish my rehearsed speech. The wedding was beautiful. Her parents loved me. My parents adored her. Everyone said we were perfect together, and I believed it. I believed it with every fiber of my being. The first year of marriage was an adjustment, as everyone warned us it would be. Learning to share space, to compromise on everything from what temperature to keep the thermostat to whose family we'd visit on holidays. But we navigated it well, I thought. We communicated. We made time for each other. We had Friday date nights that were sacred. No phones, no work talk, just us. Then her career really took off. A promotion to senior marketing director meant more responsibility, bigger clients, and yes, more travel. At first, it was once a month. Then twice. Then it seemed like she was gone more than she was home. But I supported her. That's what you do when you love someone, right? You support their dreams. You don't hold them back because of your own insecurities. When she'd come home exhausted from a week in Chicago or Los Angeles, I'd have dinner ready, run her a bath, listen to her vent about difficult clients and incompetent colleagues. I thought I was being a good husband. I thought we were building a life together, even if the architecture of that life required some temporary distance. I was wrong about so many things. That evening started like any other Friday. I got home from work around 6, changed out of my work clothes into jeans and a t-shirt, and settled onto the couch with a beer and a documentary about World War II. Melissa was supposedly in Portland for a 3-day conference. She'd left on Wednesday morning, kissed me goodbye at the door, reminded me to water her plants in the sunroom. My phone rang around 7:30. It was Ben, one of my closest friends since college. "Drew, you have to come out tonight, man. It's Marcus's birthday. We're hitting that new club downtown, the Apex. Everyone's gonna be there." I groaned. "Bro, I'm exhausted. It's been a long week. I'm just gonna chill at home." "Come on, when's the last time you came out with us? You've become a hermit. Melissa's out of town anyway, right? What else are you gonna do, watch History Channel alone on a Friday night?" He had a point, but I still resisted. "I don't know, man. I'm not really in the mood for loud music and overpriced drinks." 1 hour, Ben negotiated. "Just come for 1 hour, have a few drinks, wish Marcus happy birthday, then you can go home and be boring." "Deal." I sighed. Ben was persistent when he wanted to be. And truthfully, I had been isolating myself lately. Between work and Melissa's travel schedule, my social life had withered to almost nothing. "Fine. 1 hour. That's my boy. We're meeting at 9. Dress nice. This place has a dress code." After we hung up, I actually felt a small surge of energy. Maybe getting out would be good for me. I took a shower, put on black slacks and a button-down shirt, checked myself in the mirror. Not bad for a guy who'd been eating too much takeout lately. I texted Melissa, "Going out with Ben and the guys for Marcus's birthday." Miss you. Hope the conference is going well. She responded almost immediately. Have fun, baby. Don't drink too much. Face-blowing. This conference is boring as always. Love you. I smiled at my phone. See? Everything was fine. I was just being paranoid earlier when I'd had that weird feeling in my gut, that strange intuition that something was off. That was just anxiety talking, the kind that creeps up when you spend too much time alone with your thoughts. The Apex was packed when I arrived. The bass from the music vibrated through the floor, through my chest. Strobe lights cut through manufactured fog. Beautiful people in expensive clothes clustered around high tables, shouting conversations over the noise. I found Ben and the group near the VIP section. Marcus, the birthday boy, was already 3 drinks deep and happy to see me. Andrew, you actually came. I thought you'd turned into a vampire who only comes out during business hours. We laughed, did shots, fell into the easy rhythm of male friendship, sports talk, work complaints, good-natured insults. For the first time in weeks, I felt relaxed, present, connected to something other than my laptop screen or an empty house. That's when I saw her. At first, it was just a glimpse. A flash of familiar dark hair across the crowded club. My brain registered it, but dismissed it immediately. Melissa was in Portland, over 100 miles away. This was just some woman who happened to have similar hair. But something made me look again. Some primal instinct that overrides logic. She was standing near the bar, approximately 30 feet away. The lights were dim, the crowd was thick, but I knew. I knew the way she stood, the way she tilted her head when she laughed, the exact curve of her shoulder in that black dress that I'd watched her try on 3 months ago when we went shopping together. My heart started pounding. This wasn't possible. This had to be a mistake. Maybe she'd had to cut her trip short. Maybe there was an emergency, and she'd flown back early, and came here to surprise me, because Ben had posted about the party on social media. But even as I constructed these explanations, I knew they were lies. I knew because of the way she was standing close to a man I'd never seen before. Because of the way she was smiling at him. Because of the intimate distance between them that spoke of familiarity, of comfort, of something that made my stomach turn to ice. I started moving toward them, pushing through the crowd. My friends called after me, but their voices seemed distant, muffled, like I was underwater. Everything had narrowed to a single point. My wife, standing in a club she shouldn't be in a city she shouldn't be in, with a man who wasn't me. I was about 10 feet away when she laughed at something he said, reached up and kissed him. Not a peck. Not an accidental brush of lips. A real kiss. The kind of kiss that tells a story of other kisses, of history, of a relationship that exists in shadows and lies. The world stopped. Actually stopped. I could hear my own heartbeat, could feel each individual pulse of blood through my veins. Every sound in the club faded to white noise. I watched my wife, pull away from this stranger's mouth and smile up at him with a look I thought she reserved only for me. I don't remember deciding to approach them. My body moved on autopilot, driven by something primal and hurt and furious. Melissa. My voice came out steady. Cold. I barely recognized it as my own. She turned. Her face went through about 5 different emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, shock, fear, and then a desperate attempt at composure. Andrew. What are you? I thought you were. In Seattle? Portland? Which city did you tell me this time? I looked at the man standing next to her. He was handsome in a generic way, tall, athletic build, expensive watch. He looked confused but not scared. Not yet. Who's this? Drew, this isn't, you don't understand. The man stepped forward. Look, buddy, I don't know who you are, but... That's when I hit him. I'm not a violent person. I haven't been in a fight since high school. But in that moment, something snapped. My fist connected with his jaw, and he stumbled backward, crashing into a group of people behind him. Chaos erupted. People screamed. Security guards appeared out of nowhere. Ben and Marcus grabbed my arms, pulling me back. The man was on the ground, holding his face, looking up at me with a mixture of shock and anger. And Melissa. Melissa stepped between us, her hands up, and screamed something that shattered whatever fragments of my heart remained intact. Don't touch him. You don't understand. This isn't what it looks like. I stared at her. Really stared at her. This woman I'd shared a bed with for 5 years. This woman I'd imagined growing old with, having children with, building a lifetime of memories with. Not what it looks like, I repeated slowly. You're kissing another man in a club when you're supposed to be at a business conference. What exactly am I misunderstanding, Melissa? Security was pushing through the crowd now. People were filming on their phones. The man was getting to his feet, being helped by his friends. "Sir, you need to leave. Now." A large security guard gripped my arm. I didn't resist. I looked at Melissa one more time. She was crying, mascara running down her cheeks, reaching for me. "Drew, please let me explain." "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't say another word." I let security escort me out. Let Ben and Marcus follow, asking questions I couldn't answer. I stood on the sidewalk in the cool night air, my hand throbbing, my mind completely blank. "Dude, what the hell just happened?" Ben asked. "That was my wife," I said. "That was Melissa. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't." The thought of sleeping in our bed, surrounded by our things, in the house where we'd made promises to each other, it was suffocating. Ben took me to his apartment. He didn't ask questions, didn't push for details. He just handed me a beer, gave me a blanket, and let me sit in silence on his couch while I tried to process what had just happened. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from Melissa. Texts. Voicemails. I turned it off. I stared at the ceiling all night, watching shadows move across it, replaying every moment of the past 6 years. Looking for clues I'd missed. There had to have been signs, right? You don't just wake up one day and start an affair. It's a progression, a series of choices, of lies built upon lies. The Portland conference that didn't exist. Or maybe it did exist, but she wasn't there. How many others? How many business trips were actually rendezvous with him? I thought about all the times she'd come home and I'd asked about her trip, and she'd given me detailed stories about boring meetings and hotel room service. Were those lies too? How much of my life had been fiction? When the sun finally came up, I felt hollow. Not angry anymore, not hurt, just empty. Like someone had reached inside my chest and scooped everything out. I called my office and took a personal week. My manager, who'd never heard me take a sick day in 3 years, didn't ask questions. I turned my phone back on and immediately blocked Melissa's number. Then I called a divorce attorney. "Melissa Lawson, by the time you read this, you'll have already tried to call me dozens of times. You'll have texted, left voicemails, maybe even come by the house. I won't be answering. I won't be home. And I need you to understand why. I married you because I loved you. Not past tense out of bitterness. I genuinely did love you with everything I had. I trusted you completely, which I now understand was foolish, but it was real. When you said you were traveling for work, I believed you. When you kissed me goodbye at the door, I never doubted that you were mine, and I was yours. That night in the club destroyed me. Not just because I saw you kissing another man, though that image will probably haunt me for the rest of my life, but because in that single moment, I realized that everything I thought was real was actually a carefully constructed lie. How many trips, Melissa? How many times did you look me in the eyes and tell me you loved me, then went and did that? I don't want explanations. I don't want to hear about how it just happened, or how you never meant to hurt me, or any of the other cliches people use to justify betrayal. None of it matters. The why doesn't change the what. I've filed for divorce. The papers are on the kitchen table. My attorney will handle everything from here. The house was purchased before we married and remains in my name alone, so I'll need you to move out within the next 7 days. I've arranged for movers to help you pack your belongings. Take whatever you want, furniture, art, kitchen stuff, I don't care. The only thing I'm keeping is my dignity, which is something you can't take from me because you've already given me the greatest gift, clarity. I'm not going to trash you to our friends, or tell your family, or post angry rants on social media. I'm simply going to remove you from my life as cleanly and efficiently as possible, the same way I'd remove a tumor. Thank you for showing me who you really are. It saved me from wasting any more years on someone who was never really mine to begin with. Andrew. P.S. Don't try to contact me. Don't show up at my work. Don't use our mutual friends as intermediaries. I'll see you in court, and that's the last time I'll see you at all. Through mutual friends and unavoidable social media breadcrumbs, I eventually learned the rest of the story. Not because I went looking for it. I genuinely tried to move on, but because people love to gossip, especially about dramatic relationship implosions. Melissa's affair partner was named Derek. He was a consultant she'd met at an actual conference 6 months earlier. The affair had started as emotional cheating, long text conversations, late-night phone calls under the guise of work stuff. Then it progressed to physical when they started coordinating their travel schedules to be in the same cities. Some of her business trips were real, but many were fabricated. She'd take a Friday off work, tell me she was flying to Chicago, and actually drive 2 hours to meet Derek at a hotel in a neighboring state. She'd post photos from old work conferences on social media to maintain the illusion. She'd memorize details about cities she'd visited before to answer my questions convincingly. The truly sick part? She'd once told me about a coworker who was having an affair, and we'd discussed how pathetic and selfish cheaters were. She'd looked right at me and said, "I could never do that to you. The betrayal would kill me." And I'd believed her. The night I caught them wasn't even supposed to happen. Derek lived in my city, but they usually met elsewhere to avoid detection. That particular night, Melissa told me she was in Portland, but she was actually just staying at a downtown hotel with him. They went to the Apex because it was new and trendy, and Derek wanted to impress her. She never imagined I'd be there. The odds were infinitesimal, but I was, and her entire carefully constructed double life collapsed in seconds. Here's the part that might sound petty, but gave me a grim satisfaction. Derek ghosted her almost immediately. After I confronted them in the club, after the drama and the scene and the inevitable social media storm, he apparently decided she wasn't worth the trouble. He blocked her number, avoided her at industry events, and within 3 weeks was posting photos with a different woman. Melissa had destroyed her marriage for a man who discarded her the moment things got complicated. There's probably a lesson there about how people who help you cheat will rarely stick around for the consequences, but I didn't need to learn it. She did. The divorce was surprisingly straightforward. Melissa didn't contest anything. She signed the papers without drama, hired her own attorney who barely communicated with mine, and moved out of the house within the week I'd requested. She took her clothes, her books, some furniture from her home office, and a few pieces of art we'd bought together. She left her key on the kitchen counter. The day the movers came, I stayed at Ben's apartment. I didn't want to see her, didn't want to risk a conversation that might make me feel sorry for her or give her an opportunity to explain. My attorney told me she'd tried to contest the house initially, arguing that 5 years of marriage entitled her to shared property. But since I'd purchased it 2 years before we married, and the deed was solely in my name, she had no legal claim. That seemed to break something in her, the reality that she'd destroyed everything and had nothing to show for it except shame and an empty apartment in a part of town she'd once called depressing. Friends told me she was a mess, that she'd lost weight, was seeing a therapist, had apparently quit her job because facing colleagues who knew about the affair was too humiliating. Part of me, a small, vindictive part, felt satisfied by this. But mostly I just felt nothing. The hardest part wasn't the legal process or dividing assets. It was the small moments. Waking up and instinctively reaching for her side of the bed, only to find it empty and cold. Making coffee and automatically pouring 2 cups. Hearing a song on the radio that we'd danced to in our living room, and having to pull my car over because I couldn't see through the tears. It was walking past restaurants where we'd celebrated anniversaries, avoiding entire sections of the grocery store because they carried the specific brand of tea she liked, changing my running route because it passed the park where I'd proposed. It was the phantom pain of losing someone who was never really there to begin with. 6 months after that night in the club, I was a different person. Not better, not worse, just different. I'd thrown myself into work, earning a promotion I probably didn't deserve but accepted anyway because ambition seemed like a healthier addiction than alcohol or bitterness. I'd started going to the gym regularly, not to get revenge or make Melissa regret leaving, but because physical pain distracted from emotional pain and endorphins were free. I'd reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my marriage. Went to more birthday parties, dinner gatherings, weekend hiking trips. Learned to be alone without being lonely. Cooked meals for one without feeling pathetic. Watched movies I wanted to watch. Decorated my house the way I wanted. Lived according to my own rhythm instead of coordinating schedules with someone else. The house that had once felt like a mausoleum of dead dreams slowly became mine again. I repainted the bedroom, donated the furniture Melissa had left behind, bought new sheets that didn't carry her scent or memory. I adopted a dog, a rescue pit bull named Max who'd been abandoned by his previous owners. Seemed fitting. I didn't date. Wasn't interested. The idea of trusting someone with my heart again felt laughable, impossible. Every woman who expressed interest was automatically suspect. What were they hiding? What lies would they tell? How long before they revealed their true nature? My therapist, yes, I started seeing a therapist because pretending to be fine wasn't working, said this was normal. Trust, once shattered, doesn't reassemble easily. It's not like a broken bone that heals stronger than before. It's more like shattered glass. You can glue the pieces back together, but the cracks remain visible forever, and you'll never again handle it carelessly. I learned to be okay with that. People kept asking if I wanted revenge. If I wanted to expose Melissa publicly, ruin her reputation, make her suffer the way she'd made me suffer. I didn't. Not because I'm noble or enlightened, but because I realized something important. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's indifference. It's moving forward while they're stuck in the wreckage of their choices. Melissa lost more than a husband. She lost her integrity, her self-respect, her place in our friend group, most of whom quietly stopped inviting her to things, and apparently her career momentum. She'd traded a stable marriage and a life we were building together for a fling with a man who couldn't even be bothered to answer her calls once things got complicated. The universe had delivered its own justice. I didn't need to add to it. Meanwhile, I was genuinely okay. Not happy in the way I'd been happy before, that naive, trusting happiness that comes from believing you know someone completely. But okay in a different way, a resilient way, a way that comes from surviving something you didn't think you could survive. I'd learned that I could handle being alone, that my identity wasn't defined by being someone's husband, that I was capable of rebuilding a life from scratch when necessary. Those are valuable lessons, even if they came at a terrible cost. If my friends hadn't insisted I come out that night, if I'd stayed home like I wanted, watching documentaries and drinking beer alone, if I'd missed Marcus's birthday party, I would still be living a lie. I'd still be the fool who believed every business trip, every late-night conference call, every carefully rehearsed story about boring hotel rooms and terrible client dinners. I'd still be planning a future with someone who was simultaneously planning a separate future with someone else. The truth would have come out eventually, it always does. But it might have been years later. After we'd had children, maybe. After we'd bought a bigger house together, after our lives had become even more entangled and complicated. The pain would have been exponentially worse. That night in the club destroyed me. But it also saved me. It gave me something precious and rare, clarity. The absolute certainty that leaving was the right choice. No doubts, no what-ifs, no wondering if I'd made a mistake or given up too easily. I saw the truth with my own eyes. There was no ambiguity, no room for her to gaslight me or manipulate my perception. That's a gift in its own twisted way. So when people say, "I'm so sorry about what happened to you," I've started responding differently. I'm not, I tell them. It hurt like hell, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But I'm not sorry I found out. I'm not sorry I walked away. I'm not sorry I chose myself. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Choosing yourself when someone else has made it clear they didn't choose you. It's been a year since that night. 12 months since my life imploded, and I had to rebuild it from rubble. I'm sitting on my back porch with Max sleeping at my feet, watching the sunset paint my backyard in shades of orange and purple. The house is quiet but not empty. There's a difference. I've learned to appreciate silence, to find peace in solitude. My phone buzzes. A text from Ben. Poker night at my place Friday. You in? I smile and type back. Yeah, I'm in. Last month, I ran into Melissa at a coffee shop. We hadn't seen each other since before the divorce was finalized. She looked different, thinner, tired, older somehow. She approached me cautiously, like I might explode or cause a scene. Hi, she said softly. Hi. How are you? Good, I said honestly. Really good. She nodded, looked like she wanted to say more, but I picked up my coffee and walked past her. Not rudely, not dramatically, just walked past her like she was any other stranger in a coffee shop. Because that's what she was now. A stranger who happened to look like someone I used to know. Later, a friend asked if it had been hard to see her. If it had brought back all the pain and anger and hurt. It hadn't. I felt nothing. And that, more than anything, told me I'd truly moved on. People ask if I'll ever get married again, if I'll ever trust someone enough to let them in. I don't know. Maybe someday. Maybe never. Right now, I'm focused on building a life I'm proud of, regardless of whether I share it with someone else. I'm working on a startup with a couple of colleagues. It might fail, but at least it's something I'm excited about. I'm training Max to be a therapy dog, so we can visit hospitals and nursing homes. I'm planning a solo backpacking trip through Southeast Asia next year. I'm living. Actually living, not just existing in the shadow of someone else's lies. That night in the club, the worst night of my life, was also the beginning of something better. A life based on truth instead of illusion. A life where I control my own narrative instead of being a supporting character in someone else's betrayal story. Sometimes fate doesn't push you towards something beautiful. Sometimes it pushes you away from something toxic disguised as love. Sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you is actually fate saving you from wasting more years on the wrong person. I used to think I was unlucky to have discovered my wife's affair that way, in such a public and humiliating fashion. Now I realize I was lucky. Lucky to have friends who insisted I come out that night, even when I didn't want to. Lucky to have discovered the truth while I was still young enough to rebuild. Lucky to have gotten clarity instead of living in comfortable ignorance. They say ignorance is bliss. But I'll take painful truth over comfortable lies any day of the week. Because at least with truth, you know where you stand. At least with truth, you can make informed decisions about your life. At least with truth, you can heal from real wounds instead of being slowly poisoned by hidden lies. I'm 35 now, single, living in a house I bought myself with a dog I rescued, pursuing dreams that are entirely my own. And you know what? I'm happy. Genuinely, authentically happy in a way I never was during those 5 years of marriage, even before I knew about the affair. Because this happiness is mine. It's not dependent on someone else's choices, or someone else's fidelity, or someone else's honesty. It's just mine, and nobody can take that away from me. So to my friends who dragged me to that club against my will, thank you. You saved my life that night, even though it didn't feel like it at the time. To Melissa, I don't forgive you, but I also don't hate you. You're simply a chapter in my life that's closed now. I hope you found whatever you were looking for, and I hope it was worth the cost. To anyone reading this who's been betrayed, who's had their trust shattered, who's had to rebuild their life from scratch, it gets better. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually. The pain becomes manageable. The anger becomes indifference. The loss becomes liberation. And one day, you'll realize that the person who broke your heart actually set you free. That's not forgiveness. That's not saying it was okay, or that it didn't hurt. That's just acknowledging that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best transformations. Sometimes you have to lose who you were to discover who you're meant to be. And sometimes, fate drags you to a club on a Friday night not for entertainment, but to open your eyes to a truth you needed to see. Even if it destroys you in the process. Even if rebuilding takes everything you have. Because a life built on truth, no matter how painful that truth is, will always be better than a life built on lies, no matter how comfortable those lies feel. That's what I've learned in the year since my world fell apart. That's the wisdom that came from the wreckage. And if I had to go through it all again, the pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the humiliation, to end up where I am now, I would, in a heartbeat. Because this life, this honest, clear-eyed, independent life, is worth every moment of suffering it took to get here. That's the truth nobody tells you about betrayal. Sometimes it's not the end of your story. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a better one. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.